So what I want to know is if the camera and the tripod and the tablet are all sitting on the same table, how can there be relative motion between the two? I just don't understand. Anyway, this is my anchorage in New Haven. Okay, and when it was time to go, I pulled out of here and booked it up this way. This was all under engine power. The water is quite deep. You can see 13, 11 meters deep. And I just hugged this coast right next to this group of islands. These are the Frenchman Cays. And I pretty much just charged northeast and went up here to New Haven. The total trip length was, I think, 7.5 miles to New Haven. I pulled in there and spent 2 more nights, and then I came back out to get where I am now, which is up here. That was brutal. That was brutal. Well, we're not going to talk much about future projects because I've just about had it with projects on the boat, but one of the projects would be, if I had unlimited funding, would be to get a new anchor windlass. I don't mind the fact that it's manual. That is not the problem, but you can see this thing was not the original, and it was designed to go through a hole here. The chain will feed off of this or come from the hole, and the hole through the deck should be right there, but it's not. The hole through the deck is over here, and that's where they made it. And it's just thin, like 3/4 inch fiberglass, and that's where the chain and the rope come from. So a person cranking on the windlass has to manually feed the chain away, otherwise the chain folds under the gypsy. They call the wheel a gypsy, and then the gypsy kind of gets bound up. And so that is a huge problem. When I was weighing anchor this morning, it was raining and it was pretty windy, and I tell you, I mean, I was huffing and puffing, just manually trying to pull this chain up. So I'm trying to use a windlass, but again, you've got to have one hand kind of helping manipulate the chain away from the bottom of the gypsy, otherwise it gets piled up there. And in so doing, somehow I managed to crank a little too far, and a link got caught on this piece here, which had been welded in place. And I had to get my grinder while I'm underway and grind that fucker off, you know, just to free my chain. Otherwise, my chain was hooked on it and I couldn't drop the anchor. So that really was a huge problem I had today. So if I was like independently wealthy, I mean, that would be a job I would want done. I like this area where the fiberglass has been built up as during the original construction. That's where the windlass needs to be, but that's where the hole needs to be. This, maybe the original windlass stuck out and had the wheel over here. We just don't really know what CSY put on there originally. Probably the original was a manual windlass as well. Another problem is that the chain link size doesn't fit my gypsy exactly correctly. This is a 5/16 gypsy, and I remember I polished that off at one point just to read 5/16, and I bought 5/16 chain, but it's not, all 5/16 chain is not the same. And I gave the old chain to Jared because he's a good friend of mine, a really great younger guy, and he's getting started with sailing, so he's in the Bahamas right now. And it's just, you know, how the story goes, but the bottom line is I don't have that chain left anymore, and the chain I have doesn't really fit the gypsy. So the project I envision probably is going to be a couple $1,000 because I'm going to have to spend the money for a new windlass, the fiberglass modifications to cover up this hole and to create the hole there, and also to buy new chain to fit the gypsy of the new windlass. And then, of course, the power supply, because if I'm going to get a new windlass, I'll get a power windlass while I'm at it. So I have spent plenty of time in Guatemala bitching about doing too many damn projects and always working on the boat. But if there was one thing I was going to do, that would be the job. So I'm otherwise pretty much done with all projects on the boat, except for maybe repowering and getting a new engine, but we're not going to talk about that either. Mr. Perkins did a hell of a good job today. So I've been sitting here for the last 20 minutes eating my breakfast and just watching this guy getting underway. It's a German boat. At least I can see a German flag. But really impressive. He got underway from anchor, and I think what impressed me is that So there's two things that stand out in my mind. Watching this guy get underway, you know, he's over my back shoulder there somewhere. You know. But first, watching that he got underway, and I did not ever hear the engine come on. Okay, so that, I mean, he might have started it just in case, but I mean, I've gotten underway from under sail power alone by myself, and it can be done, and I've done it before. But then watching him, you know, take the time to pull up the anchor chain about 2 more meters, and then he gets a bucket of water and washes the chain, and then he pulls it up 2 more meters and gets a bucket of seawater and dumps it on the chain. Like, he does not want that muddy bottom in his boat. So that was kind of cool, and he was willing to take the time to do it. And it was like zero stress, you know, it looked like over there on that boat. And no frustration. I didn't see any frustration. I didn't hear any curse words, and I'm thinking, man, that's what I've got to achieve. Before I quit this sailing life, I want to achieve the state where I can just take what nature gives me. I mean, the wind is a land breeze right now. It's coming. That was at Frenchman, Cays, and also in New Haven. I really didn't do a lot of work. I would do some engine work and maybe a couple little odd jobs for my honeydew jar, but mostly I sit there and watch other boats come and go, and I play around in the dinghy. In this case, I buzzed over to check out this old shack / house that had been built along the mangroves here. Okay, I'm not bragging in any way. This is not me trying to brag, but when the sea is flat as a pancake, you can generally go faster by motoring, you know, if the winds are light. But with the sea is kind of bouncy, and every time the bow goes down, you slap into the waves, it slows you down. And I just noticed that for a while, that sailboat behind me, this is difficult to show. That sailboat behind me, see that back there? Black hull, white top. There it is. For a while, that boat had been gaining on me, and they, of course, don't have any sails up. But now I'm pulling away. So I'm making only 4 knots, and they're not able to make even 4 knots right now. So I'm going faster just by sail power alone. And that's instructive in a way, that if you think that it's always easier to motor, sometimes it's more frustrating. Everybody gets irritated because it's so fucking loud, and the engine gets hot, and the floor I'm standing on gets hot, and I worry about my engine since it's so old. So for me, there's a lot of reasons to always try to sail. It's more comfortable. The boat rides better when it's under sail, honestly. And I don't know that I can explain that hydrodynamically, but it seems to be true. If I'm motoring, true, I can point directly into the wind, but you see how these waves are kind of got that little roller, and the period is such that I'll be on the peak of one, and then the bow will drop down and get hit by the next, and then it almost comes to a dead friggin' stop. So it was awful. If you're going with the swell under motor, it doesn't really solve that problem either. So sailing like I'm doing, taking the swell right off the bow, not directly into it and not directly on the side of it, it keeps my rolling to a minimum, and it's a very comfortable motion right now. And I'm going faster than that guy. That's what I thought was interesting. Well, we're almost at Monkey Key, which is over there. There's 5 miles away. That's the ways to go. And I've got a ship right next to me right now. Yeah. They were at anchor with me last night. So I'll go over and find them after we anchor. He's going faster than I am, but I think I hear his engine going. Sure. Well, I don't want you to think that I'm putting on some show that the sailing life is all idyllic. I've been pretty pissed off with the weather forecast and with the actual conditions. Again, the wind is nothing close to what it was predicted to be. That's just a reality. It's supposed to be southeast, it's northeast. And that changes everything when you're trying to travel northeast, I assure you. Nonetheless, I have myself in a position where I should be able to sail directly into Placencia Lagoon, harbor, whatever you want to call it. And it's directly in front of me. I'm about 4 miles out, making about 3 knots, so they'll take me a little over an hour to get there. If I can just hold the course To my left is another sailboat. That's the one that passed me earlier. They seem to be more well-ordered than me, but he's got a crew. It's not a single person trying to manage it, and I bet they have an auto helm, electronic one. And over here is a cruise ship. Been watching that all day. I mean, as soon as I rounded the corner at New Haven, I could see this thing. It looks like a damn hotel, you know, from a distance. And it takes a few minutes to work out just what it is you're looking at. But it helps to navigate, because I know exactly where the cruise ship pier is on the chart, which is right there. That's where the cruise ship dock is. So if you know that, then you can pretty much use it as a navigational beacon. It can't go wrong to steer by something that big. Yeah, hey guys, so thank you for watching. As always, I'm Russ. This is Sailing Vessel Tautog. Our current location is Placencia in Belize. And it's just, it's the same as it was the last time I was here, and I like it here. Pretty comfortable place. Two clarifications. One being, let's talk about sailing first. I made a comment in the video about, you know, how I was happy that I could sail faster than that guy could motor. Well, that's only because I had conditions that allowed it. You would have to, I wasn't trying to point directly into the wind. If you're pointing directly into the wind, motoring is really your only choice. I mean, it's, you're not going to sail. If the wind is from the north, you're not going to sail directly in that direction. You're going to have to tack all your way, and that's what I ended up doing. But at that point, I think that guy was ended up motor sailing, because we were right at that edge where you couldn't sail anymore and you'd have to motor. So anyway, they turned out to be the better sailors, because once they decided to sail, they were clearly faster than I was. So that's that. Second thing is the anchor. I said a lot of words about the anchor chain and windlass and projects and all that hoo-ha. I guess I wasn't clear though. And you first need to decide what your rode is going to be. Now to me, rode means a combination of chain and rope, or is it all chain? You have to decide. Now my boat has, you see a rope going out the front of the boat, and that's because I have a rope and another 30 feet down, it's connected to a chain which is 130 feet long, and it's connected with a shackle, and that shackle will not fit through that little housing, that little opening in the bottom of the windlass. So that new windlass I put in the photograph, in the video, you know, that doesn't look like it's capable of passing a shackle. So if you bought a windlass like that, that's equivalent to accepting the fact that you're going to be a chain-only boat. And that means you're going to need more chain. So I have 130 feet of chain, and I would almost have to double that. And again, you're talking $8 to $10 a foot. That's expensive stuff. So it's not a project for the faint of heart to go changing things like that. Oh, no, one last thing. I'm looking at the boat behind me. So that boat is named Riki. Now you will see in the very center of their bow, they have a chain hanging down, and on the port and starboard corners on the pontoons, there's looks like a black strap. Well, that's a rope, usually under like fire hose type, you know, to prevent chafing. But those black straps, those are called snubbers, and so most of the boats here have snubbers, and I'm looking at a couple that don't. But in general, most people have all chain rode and they use snubbers. I don't do that. If you have all chain, you need to use a snubber, because then your only other option is to hook the chain on the windlass and let the windlass bear the force of holding the boat in place. And it can be a lot of strain, and you can damage your very expensive windlass if you just let that bear the strain. So what people do is they attach a rope, maybe in a location like this. Now my boat is not well set up for it to have the snubber. You attach the rope / snubber to the chain, and then you lower that down in the water, so you got 10 or 20 foot of snubber out, and then you put more chain out and to slacken it so that there's no tension on the windlass. I don't know if I'm making any sense at all, but I'm actually pretty happy today. I've been kind of trying to decide what's my next move, and I admit that there's days when I come back, and I was frustrated the other day when I came up here from New Haven, and I thought, you know, if you're going to be frustrated after a 20-mile trip, you know, you maybe want to think twice before you start an 8,000-mile trip across the Pacific. And I am doing a lot of thinking these days about, what is it I want to do? I want to enjoy this a little more. So I am thinking, but I feel good. I'm a lucky guy. I'm sitting here when the weather's cold up north, and I'm sitting here and I'm just in my shirt sleeves. So it's all good, guys. So take care, everybody. Bye-bye.